Welcome. Today is, what, Thursday, March 6th, 7, whatever it is, 32, in room 119. This is the RTM Public Works Committee. One thing about tonight, we have our ongoing secretary list. Tony, he's our secretary for this evening. And just as a point of information for the next meeting, Ian, you're on deck. Okay, got that behind us. With respect to the agenda, I apologize. I did not update the agenda for something that came to us in the Rules Committee meeting, 3 days ago, with respect to the wall, the wall behind the ENT Heights Fire Department, or in front of the ENT Heights Fire Department. There's a resolution to have an expenditure to cover the cost of basically tearing down the wall, tear down that wall, and put it back up. It's put the wall back up, a brand new one, which has been gone through engineering study and has been also looked at by our supervisor of Public Works at Gentile, who is also an engineer. We'll get to that later, but I just wanted to say that there'll be an adjustment here, or an addition, if you will, to the agenda. Thank goodness this is not a special meeting. So without objection, we're going to first go through Appendix B with our special guest, Jack Davis. And then, rather than going into the town plan of conservation, we will then go over the resolution for the wall, the rebuilding of the wall. Okay? So, without any further ado, I'll turn this over to Jack. I asked him to keep it succinct, to the point, and of course, we're most interested in those aspects of these upcoming changes that are particularly germane to the Public Works Committee, but there are some overall aspects of the changes that affects all standing committees. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jack.
To keep it short, we're reviewing Appendix B. Do you have any questions? Okay, let me give you a little bit more than that. So, I was working on a scope document which was named the Matrix, which was assigning all grants, departments, commissions, boards to all of the standing committees, and I was doing it from an F&B perspective. So I understood, and I could get out and say, hey, can you do this? And the other thing was to give out to the committee saying, hey guys, you're responsible for that. So if somebody wants to look what's going on in the harbor, look at that commission. You know, so here's all the things you can do. This committee was already doing that. So it was pretty simple because you already had assignments on who was looking at what. So it really fit into this. F&B was doing the same thing as well. So, and I think Park and Rec was similar. So it just enhanced what we were going on. From there I decided, oh, maybe I'll read the definitions of the committees just to see if I can have anything go. And being kind, they were absolutely, totally wrong. I mean, this committee was still looking at the town incinerator, which, if you don't know that we had one, was taken out in the 80s, and if you want to know where it is, just look at the swap shop, because that's where it was. So, so I read the rest of it and said, oh my gosh, went to Seth and said, I think we need to change these. I also went to Kate Bush and said, what do you think about these definitions? And the British term is gobsmacked, but I actually watched her jaw hit the floor when she heard some of the definitions there. So that precipitated Frank Kemp, who heads TGS&A, and I were assigned to do it. I got sort of assigned because TGS&A is actually the only committee, standing committee we have that has no budgetary responsibility. And a lot of what's in Part 6 is all about how we interact with the other parts of government, budget, and everything else. So I was asked to do it. Now, to make life a little bit easier, there's an intro sheet that was given. We realized that we changed things based upon to reflect current practice over the last 20 years. One of the sections in here said that somebody couldn't be on more than 2 standing committees. Well, nobody's been on 2 standing committees for well over 30 years. And there's a lot of reasons why they shouldn't, so we changed it, you can only be on 1. There's changes that just clarify the prior code. As I said, the descriptions of standing committees were old, archaic, and simply incorrect. I had another word for that, but I'm not allowed to put it in writing. The standing committees are empowered to, with clarification of existing rights and powers. And there's one thing that was so draconian, that control of standing committees rests with the standing committees. Now, I'm a standing committee guy. Rules has its role, which is assigning people to committees, assigning the agenda, doing other works like our technology and some other things that are going on, instructing us to look at caucus and other things like that. Standing committees are the lifeblood of the RTM. And you have to be empowered and realize you're empowered to do what you need to do to be the checks and balances of this town. And you'll hear people say, well, you can't set policy. We can influence policy. F&B has done that. You guys have done that. I do believe that the sidewalk initiative that you started, in addition to the complaints that were coming from Ox Ridge, precipitated taking that 10-year document off the shelf. Having done strategy in my life, you don't do a strategy and throw it into a closet and never look at where you are against that. At least every 5 years you should re-up and say, oh, we were right, or oh, we were wrong. The latter is usually the case. But in any event, I think that this committee was responsible for re-upping that, and I'm really happy that you guys took that initiative. But that's the initiative that all the committees have. So when you read this, some of the clarification is saying, guys, you can do this, and I encourage you to do this. Now, again, we don't make the formal policy, but we do have something that John Zagroski mentioned. We do have the power of the purse. At the end of the day, nothing is done in this town that costs money without our approval. And that's part of the reasons why every town in the state of Connecticut that has a Board of Finance and an RTM, both the Board of Finance and the RTM are considered by the state as the budget-making authorities in that town. So for years, this place has only thought it was the Board of Finance. It's taken us a while, but we're getting that recognition from the other boards that our legislative body is part of the budget-making authority of this town, because there is no budget unless we approve it. So I'm just going to go over some of the main things that we've changed so you know. We mentioned, I'll do it briefly, on page 3, you don't have your thing, so that's just fine.
Yeah, it's up on the...
So on page 3, section G says standing committees are responsible for reviewing the list of areas of responsibility within their purview published by the Rules Committee. Standing committees are also responsible for reporting changes to the Rules Committee as new areas are identified or others are no longer active. There's a lot of advisory groups and boards that are set up and then they go away, so that has to get back to rules so that they can make an adjustment to the scope document. On page 5, I just basically said that, so I'm not going to go through that again. There is some duplication of efforts. So in one section we say everybody's responsible for financial, but my response to somebody in TGS&A, we all know we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make anybody read this document. So what we did is we redid certain things, or restated certain things within the committee's definition, because that's where people are going to go. What's my committee responsible for? So yeah, it may be 3 paragraphs above, but it's back in here. So we did some modification on Public Works. Obviously, you're not responsible for the incinerator anymore. But you're a unique committee, because like F&B goes to the Board of Finance, Park and Rec has the Park and Rec Commission, Education has the Board of Education, and then there's the various land, P&Z and the other lands that P&Z and H have. There's also certain commissions that Public Health and Safety has. Other than the Sewer Authority and the Sewer Commission, you're the only committee that really doesn't go up against a board. And so for you, liaison with the Director of Public Works, the Parking Authority, and the Sewer Commission, as well as following, monitoring, reporting, and recommending on all town-owned or operated public works facilities, and then in brackets, other than school buildings, park and recreation, police and fire facilities, and including but not limited to other towns' infrastructure and services provided by Public Works, as well as financial matters and other areas assigned. Now, that's a little bit of a nuance here, because while Park and Rec is responsible for park properties, Ed is an ex officio on the Park and Rec Commission, just in case you didn't know that. I found that out by looking at the board and saying, oh, what's Ed doing here? So you have that. In addition, based upon the recent work that was just done with having now a full-time person in the police department to deal with that, the most sophisticated, honestly, it's the most sophisticated building that we have in town with everything that they have. But so there's somebody there, but that person still sort of like has a matrix line into Ed. I mean, just what Ed needed, he didn't have enough doing Public Works, Great Island, sewer stuff, and flood mitigation and everything else. But he does have, that's part of the reason why that person was set up. There was just a limited capacity. So while this definition says you don't have direct influence on that, when Ed gets involved, obviously you guys will follow. So that becomes the other areas assigned for your group. We took out the 2 things. One, the chair of any standing committee may be removed from such office for failure to discharge properly their duties by the Rules Committee. When I read that, you know that thing that starts with WT? There's no way that's staying in here. The management of standing committees resides solely within the standing committee. And I also want to make sure that Rules isn't taken over and they don't like what a committee chair is doing, so they try and remove them. We do say, though, that each officer of the standing committee shall hold that office at the will of the committee and may be removed as such officer by a majority vote of all the committee members. So that's still here, but you guys control it. The Rules does not. We also took out something that just actually drives me nuts. Each standing committee shall act only upon the affirmative vote of the majority of a quorum of the committee.
What page is that, Jeff?
That's 9 at the bottom. Well, first, you can also act on a negative vote. If you don't want something to move forward, you can say, we voted against this and we're recommending that to the full RTM. So that's number 1. That's the first thing that take out of it. Second of all, the majority vote of a quorum of a committee, you know, that's basically saying you're having a meeting. And you can't have a meeting, since we follow Robert's Rules of Order, unless we have a quorum. And so we took all those references. Frequently it was saying a meeting where there's a quorum. All right, that's nice, but there is no meeting if you don't have a quorum. So we just took those things out.
Jack, that's not quite true. You can hold a meeting, you just may not conduct.
But
You may
votes.
not, you can't conduct votes.
Right.
So,
But for this thing, what we're saying is,
I
you know,
Take action.
yeah, you can't take
can't take
action.
action. Thank you.
Here's one of the ones that I like to say, this is my Rolf section.
Carry on.
You should all be so lucky.
It's also the Public Works one. Any standing committee may, at its own discretion, consider and report to the RTM upon any matter not referred to it, but which is within the purview of such standing committee. Any standing committee or the Rules Committee is authorized to establish a subcommittee or working group to conduct a study or analysis within their purview. Nobody should question why you set up a sidewalk group again. I want you to understand, this isn't just guidance. This is going to be an ordinance. This is the law of the town. So, I blame Ralph for it, but, but it's something that F&B has done also. But, I mean, I want you to tell you how much we really appreciate what you did. The other things that we've sort of done was, while we were doing this on Part 6, somebody on TGS&A, Beth Pope, happened to read Part 5, Section 9, where it said the rules contained on Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 10th edition 2000, shall govern the meeting in all cases of which they are applicable and in which they're not inconsistent with the rules and procedures. Well, that's great, but Robert Rules is about 20 versions above that, and I have no intention, nor does Frank Kemp, of changing that every year. So wherever it was referenced to Robert's Rules of Order, we now say that the rules contained in the most current Robert Rules of Order shall govern the meeting in all cases in which they are applicable and in which they are not inconsistent with these rules of procedure. Now, we say that in Part 5 because Part 5 governs how we run a meeting in the RTM, and not everything in there is consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. This is how we do certain things in our legislative body. So as long as we're complying what's there, Robert Rules of Order takes over. I will tell you something else which is part of what that, the Rolf section is. You know, I've been in the RTM for 20 years, and I've seen a couple of moderators. And everybody, after the two committees that may be assigned report, says, is there any other committee that wants to report? That's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance says that the only committees that can report are the ones that have been assigned by rules. So we got rid of that real quick, because the basic thing that I've seen for 20 years is that any committee that wants to report on a topic can. And that's what should be going. So basically,
I think that one's important.
I do too.
Very important.
I absolutely agree. So, look, here's what we're asking. Please, in the next couple of days, read this. If you see a typo, if you see an error, if you don't like how I write English, which I sometimes claim to be my first language, but others claim that it's not, please write to Frank Kemp or myself. I don't care if you use my Gmail account or my Gov account. If you're writing to Frank, please use his Gmail account. It shows up on the Outlook one, and let us know. We're trying to get all of our comments in from each of the committees. We're giving like not more than a week to give a response. They're all coming back to a meeting for TGS&A, because the document that I just read to you is now approved by TGS&A. It is their document. This is not the Jack Davis document. This is not the Frank Kemp document. This has had over 15 individuals put input into this document over time. Many in meetings, somebody say something and said, oh yeah, that makes sense, and we made the change right away. So we need to get this done. I mean, I need to go back to just being finance and budget. And so they're gonna meet. We've already sent the draft over to Wayne to look at. But the goal is, TGSNA has to look at the final of all the comments that come back, and pardon my sense of humor, we will even report the dumb comments that come back. But also remember that, you know, like people that pray and sometimes they don't get what they want, don't be surprised if TGSNA says no. Doesn't mean that there's a comment that everything's gonna get in here. It's gonna be their document. That'll go to rules on the 7th of April and it's not, rules isn't gonna approve it. Everyone in rules sits on a committee, so they'll have their opportunity there. But the goal is to have it on the, there, and have this approved by the RTM in April, so I can go back to work. Like my real job, that I get paid a lot of money for. The town.
This is the opportunity for input, though. This is it.
This is it.
Yeah,
This is it.
this is the time. We've been waiting, what, over 2 years?
2 years.
Oh,
So,
you're sounding like Seth.
so speak now, or in the next several days, or forever hold your peace.
I keep on reminding Seth that this isn't a Beaujolais, this is a fine wine. We wanted to make sure that we had a good working document that will last another 20 years. So, but that's what we're looking for. And so from that, thank you very much for your time. We do take comments, we really do. And if you're not sure of something, you know, call me up.
Does anybody have any comments or questions right now while we're all together?
I just want to say thank you for that comment. I know you called it the role provision that committees can make their own subcommittees. I think that's a very important principle of self-governance for any body within the RTM. And I personally appreciate your focus on that, because I think that has been used to as a tool to try and delegitimize certain actions that some committees have taken at some times. So I appreciate that.
If they
that
understood everything that we've done at F&B, you know that we do the same thing.
Right.
So, and I have sat here and spoken to various elected and former elected officials who have challenged what you guys did here and said to them, you're out of your mind, they have every right to do this. So now we have it codified.
Yes, I like that, codified.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, thank you very much.
I'm going to stay here for your next one.
Yes,
since
sir.
we address that.
Also like to reach out to Frank Kemp. He was part of this effort along with the TGSNA
Yep.
committee, so it was a team effort, if you will, and I think it shows in all of the adjustments that have been made here that there was a lot of input and a lot of time and a lot of attention, so we want to thank them. And so let's move on. The next item is the Norotan Heights, the wall, the retainer wall behind the Norotan Heights, or in front of the Norotan Heights Fire Department. This started actually back in 2023 when an engineer consultant was brought in to look at the wall, and from them the project has moved on and on and on to where we are here today. I'll just read briefly at least the first section here of the resolution. The sum of $2,006,100 is appropriated for costs associated with the Norotan Heights Fire Department retaining wall replacement project in the town of Darien, Connecticut, the town. Such costs to include, but not limited to, the demolition of the existing structure and pavement, installation of new retaining walls and pavement, replacement of fencing, inspection and construction administration services, as well as contingency, administrative, printing, legal, and financing costs related thereto, said appropriation to be inclusive of any and all state and federal grants in aid thereof. So there's the money, $2 million. Nice appropriation. I'll bring up the, this might take a second. Okay.
Well, Ralph's bringing it up. I will mention that the $6,100 is bond issuance costs. So while there's, you see $2 million in here, that extra amount is for bond that you usually see we add on to our bonding issues.
Jack, and this wasn't appropriated in the last budget cycle, and it can't wait for the next budget cycle.
That's correct. Now, going back a little bit, in January, to which F&B participated on, we got tired of a lot of these off-cycle projects that were coming and taking money out of the general fund or bonding, when many of us thought that should have been part of a budget process. So there's a set of criteria that was developed with Sarah Newman, Jen Janeski, and myself that the Board of Selectmen approved. This project, based upon 3 of the criteria, meets the criteria that it can go forward because it had been previously discussed, we knew it was coming. And the other thing is, there's a bid here from June of last year that if we waited another 3-4 months, the price wouldn't be this.
Yeah, the contractor, the one that did respond to the bid, the only one, is willing to hold that. So there's a number of reasons why timing is an issue here. Okay, so I'll try and run through this quick. This is the slide presentation, I believe, that was presented to the Board of Selectmen just recently. I believe that was the meeting on the 24th of February. And so the Roten Heights retaining project. The original wall was built in the 1950s, part of the original construction. The original grade went all the way down to the parking lot. I believe the height is like 17 feet, okay, from
Yep, it
the
is.
road surface down to the bottom of the property.
79 feet more.
Yes. The railroad tie wall was added in the 90s, which was an attempt at basically a patch job. And it's not holding up. In 2023, the parking lot pavement began to cave in and the fence started to collapse. The Roten Heights Fire Department was instructed to contact engineers, contracted restructure engineering from Pelham, New York to construct a full report on the condition. The report concluded the wall must be rebuilt. Reviewed the engineer's report with Ed Gentile from DPW. Of course, that special appropriation on March 28, 2023 to contract the engineer to start the process to complete drawing and bid spec. So you can see here, this is, I mean, this might be a little difficult for you to see from, oops, sorry, that's not what I meant to do.
That's important to read also.
Yeah, here we go. So you can see the scaling that's going on here, and that's a sign of water that's just seeping through those concrete blocks and gives you an idea of the deterioration that's going on. And this is from I think that picture was taken actually not recently. That's from a while ago when they first discovered and started to look into this. Designed to retain the soil and weight of vehicles parked adjacent to the wall, designed to act as a building foundation wall if we expand the building. So they're saying there is a proviso that if down the road they want to expand the building, they'll be able to do so. Constructed with reinforced concrete and a chain link fence anchored to the top of the wall. The vehicular barrier will be anchored in front of the wall to prevent vehicles from driving over the edge. The design was reviewed with Ed Gentile from DPW. Bid packet reviewed by Kathleen Buke and Ed Gentile was sent out May 13, 2024. Only bid submitted. Renee Beck, engineer, reviewed the bid. Reviewed each time the item of the bid to confirm if it is in line with typical market rates. Reviewed the high and low line items with the bidder to confirm they understood the scope of the work and associated detail. Budget request. So here it is. The base is the $1.44 million. Okay, and then I believe they went with alternate 2 and 3, which involves with the fencing and the barriers and that whole thing. Construction administrative phase, special inspections, town fee, which I think the town actually waived.
But we had a state fee there.
but there is a state fee. It's just an education fund. It's a mandatory by statute that they collect, I don't know, was it 0.2%,
Yeah,
something like that, of the overall construction cost, and that goes to the state to help educate people who work in building departments around the state. Who knew?
I'll also add that on alternative, I believe it is 2,
Yeah.
that almost 300,000 includes scraping off some of the cement on the bridge and redoing that.
The bridge to the building?
Yeah, that has rot on it. There's certain bearing I-beams that have to be taken out. The pedestrian entrance has to be rebuilt. And Jeff, we may not be voting there come next November.
Yeah,
because
I think that's a very
The
strong
ramp.
possibility.
the ramp that goes up there for the ADA compliant would be in the construction zone, so they're looking at that now. Obviously, Jeff and I are in the same district,
Yeah.
and that's what we
You
vote.
two seem like simpatico.
Yeah. So,
I have a question. I have a question.
Sure.
How often does a figure end up being $2 million exactly?
Well, I think
The
it,
contingency number helps make.
I think it's actually the figure I meant, I think it's actually the figure I read from the resolution, which was $2,006,100.
the 6 is the things, the contingency. That's how you end up. It's a lot
Yeah,
easier.
plus
to
there,
go.
this is, in most probability, it's not confirmed already, it's gonna be a bonded project, okay? And so there are fees associated with setting up the bonds and executing the bonds, that's in all of these numbers as well. Because this is in excess of $1 million, a building committee will be formed, similar to the building committees that we have for the public school projects that are going on right now. And that committee will be involved to follow this project through to the end and help monitor it. There is another outside engineer that is also going to be involved with the project to monitor it, to make sure that the specs of the cement, the rebar and everything else is as specified as it is being put together and constructed, as the cement's being poured, okay, that sort of thing. Yes.
Yeah, Ralph, what is typical for these contracts? Are these lump sums? Are they cost plus?
Cost. It's the cost, it's gonna be the cost of what it is, based upon what's expended, we will make a payment.
Let me rephrase. If on the same scope, it ends up being 2.6 million, who pays?
Matters. They better tell us really quick that it's 2.6 million, because then it has to come back to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and us to approve that. Or we can say no.
Yeah.
So,
It's a fixed amount.
yeah.
It's a fixed amount for a fixed scope.
Yep.
Yes.
So that's
So
a
if
lump
they
sum.
miscalculate,
If the contractor miscalculates,
they bear the risk. They
They bear the
can
risk.
walk.
Yeah, that's true.
We have to
Can
fix
walk.
it. I mean, we'd have to pick somebody else to.
I'm sure, based upon my conversations, that there is contingency from the contractor
Yes.
built in to those 3 alternatives that they built in there. So they knew what, they've already made estimates on what the cost of steel is going to be. They've made estimates on what the work is going to be. And remember, this, as was discussed in the meeting last night, this is a more complicated project than what some believe, because you're taking down a wall, and at the same time, if that land goes, we're gonna lose half that road. I mean, I'm being honest on that. We're gonna lose the road. And so, that is part of the costs of what they're trying to do when they take and rebuild.
so to reiterate, you're saying that this is a lump, what I would call a lump sum contract for a scope of work.
Mhm.
The contractor is taking the risk up to that scope,
Mhm.
right? That's the way these contracts are done.
Yep.
Okay, because the observation is that contingency is minuscule.
Right, because there's contingency.
Yeah, there's
in the-
contingency in their
In what they're-
number,
Now, I
as
will
well
say-
as well as the contingency that you see at the bottom.
I think we have a recent example of this with the the dam.
Yeah.
The bridge dam, where there was a miscalculation.
Yep,
The contractor did not take the
square feet
hit, but had to come
instead of
before the,
square yards.
you all remember that, it came before the.
Right, but that was
RTM.
actually a math error that was
Yeah.
An error, no.
done here
An
in
error.
town hall.
yeah.
In regard, well, really,
Yeah.
No, it
No,
was
but
an
when-
error from our consultant that put together
Okay,
the
right.
RFP,
Bid- the bid
that put
documents
down
was wrong.
square feet instead of square yards.
Okay.
And when they finally looked, after they bid and won, they finally looked and say, this isn't the right calculation, so they came back to us and went through the whole process.
so it had to
and
get,
we
it had to be
Right.
approved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
and
had to
then-
be
And so I guess
approved.
it's not a perfect parallel, but
Right,
nonetheless,
it's
there is a
close enough.
It's
mechanism
close enough.
if it's
yeah.
justified.
Plus, let me just explain one thing, which I explained yesterday. When we approve this, the town of Darien is not going out and bonding for $2 million. The way we operate projects such as this is we start paying for things as it comes up out of the general fund. And you hear that, just think of that as being our checking account. That's where all the town funds go in for Board of Ed and the town. So out of that checking account, we'll start paying for it, and we'll say, oh, this project owes the checking account that amount of money. So when we get to the final number, if this comes in at being 1.9 million, that's the amount that's gonna be bonded. If it ends up being a little bit over, let's say it's 2,050,000, in the reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenses is a contingency account where the Board of Finance can move $50,000 over without going over, and we use it for small amounts. Usually we overestimate the cost of projects, and so when we do closeouts, it all ends up back in there. So that gives us a little bit of plus and minuses on what goes on. But, so when we're doing this, if this is a 62-week project, let's just even say they start in May, this may not be bonded until sometime in '27.
All right.
So that's where I'm saying, yeah, this is what we're saying is the max, but it could be a little less.
So
And that's what
they have here the
bond-
base bid, which covers remove the old wall, rebuild new and side entrance to the firehouse, alternate 2, repair pedestrian entrance and fire truck entrance bridges to maintain safety and structural capacity. New vinyl coating chain link fence installed on both sides of the parking lot is alternate 3. Actually, you should have had that earlier, but anyway, okay. So there's a construction admin phase based on 62 weeks of construction, weekly meeting, prepare the contract and review items before project kickoff. Special inspection estimates based on the estimated number and type of inspection, multiple prices received. And then preparation of as-built drawings, this is the closeout from the engineer. Final paper documents for the building department, obtain all necessary inspection reports from special inspection. So that's how the project's gonna move through this time.
Rob, I actually have a question about,
Yeah.
a building committee is gonna be formed, and I understand
Yeah.
that's per the new guidelines. The timing of a building committee being formed, I'm trying to remember on some of our prior projects, at what stage.
Sometimes they've taken longer than we may think, but I have a feeling this one may be going pretty quickly.
It needs to go quickly.
Well, that's kind of where I'm headed, is
Yeah,
we've already got a
because-
plan.
You know,
I don't know if the mechanical, the drawings that were circulated are the complete design specs, or.
No, we don't have,
We don't have mechanicals yet, do we?
I don't know if we do.
Yeah, mechanicals.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, we have more than several other committees because I requested the engineering study so that we can distribute it to the RTM committees that are looking at it. And quite honestly, I thought the engineering study did a better story than the presentation.
Yeah, there is
on what really
another
happened to be done.
one from the
Yeah, I wasn't
engineer consultant.
No, no.
going at that, I was trying to understand at what point is it kind of late for a building committee to be having input if we're past the,
I think
Design.
I think they're going to be monitoring it.
in this case.
Yeah.
But
We're the monitor.
there's one other little nuance to this project. Has anybody done any home improvements in their homes? You know, okay. So you need a building inspector to come out and do it, right? Well, you're supposed to.
Sounds good.
No,
Yeah.
Just say yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm saying that you did that. The head of our building inspection Department is a gentleman by the name of Sean Varlin. Sean happens to be the fire chief at Norotan Heights. Sean has, and he put down, he has over 20, 30 years of construction. I just redid a kitchen, and two of the people that I know, because I was my own general contractor, because I wanted my people doing it instead of somebody else's, because Fancy went wrong, I'll call back my electrician and put it in. And they know Sean. And they all said that he's one of the best inspectors in Fairfield County. So this is his building, if you know what I mean. And they're gonna be doing inspections, as well as an outside consulting firm because of some of the stuff that's going on. You know, I appreciate a building committee. I promise that there'll be a tremendous number of eyes on what's going on.
I just wanted you to
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
no,
highlight that because.
I kept on
Come up.
asking to see if Ed would be on this.
Yep.
And I couldn't get an answer from Jay-Z. But yeah, I would hope that in about 2 days after we approve this, a building committee is put together.
And is the, I mean, it's implied, but let me ask the question. The firehouse is still gonna be operational through this process? Because it's a 15-month process.
It better be, that's my fire department, should something
Mine
happen
too.
to my house. Yeah. The answer is yes. I do know that they're gonna be doing things on the bridge, but I don't know to the extent of it. You know, I can be a general contractor on rebuilding a kitchen because I can do a lot of the stuff myself. This I don't do.
Yeah, this is not a
Really?
DIY.
No. Demolition I'm good at.
Jack, can I just come back to the question that got raised earlier about risk? I'm less worried about the financial risk, but more to your point, operation, this is a more complicated project than maybe meets the eye originally. The risk of failure, although probably remote, would be catastrophic, right? Who bears the risk of that from an insurance point of view? And I'm just thinking, you know, they have whatever holes half dug, and we have a torrential rainstorm, and someone, you know.
I can answer from an accounting perspective based upon a question I asked at the Board of Selectmen meeting. Okay? I am not an attorney, so I cannot give you a legal opinion. One of the first things I ask is whether or not this is bonded, because the last thing I want is another shuffle.
Right.
So that's
You mean a construction bond?
Yeah. Because I want to make sure that we don't pay somebody and they then go bankrupt the next day. And we have to
Well, that happens.
Yeah,
High school.
yeah, and then we have to repay people. So the bonding is in place. I also asked what the insurances were, and the insurances have been inspected by the town to ensure that the contractor has the appropriate insurances to cover. Plus, again, the town has insurance. So there's both town insurance and the contractor. Now, again, I'm not an attorney, but I believe one of the attorneys in my committee did say that there may be some liability that passes to the contractor based upon the work that they're doing. But I believe that's part of the insurances where we were looking at what insurances they were carrying and how to maintain throughout the time of this construction project. That's the best I can answer, because I'm not an attorney or
Okay,
lawyer.
so dumbing it down for my level, I'm not an attorney either. I'm just saying, like, operationally, if you do, I mean, you made the comment, unless I misunderstood you, that if there's something catastrophic happen, you know, you could lose part of the road, right?
Yes.
And to Mark's question a second ago, we want to make sure that this firehouse stays in operation.
Yes.
So if something dramatic happens, and let's say those are not able to be maintained, you know, the road is not passable for a period of time, the firehouse is not operational for a period of time. I don't know, like, who's responsible for drawing up contingency plans, or for coming up with, like, alternatives, or, I mean, yeah, I'm worried about who pays, but I'm also worried about, like, how you manage.
My daughter came to town from DC, Her form of law is suing insurance companies, but not for car accidents, for like catastrophic things that happen in hurricanes, for like billion-dollar things. She could easily explain the legal responsibilities of who has what here, but I am sure that it would be a shared responsibility of both the town and the contractor. And that's the best I can say. Now, the contractor, even though they were the only bid, were obviously checked for their credentials, what they're capable of doing, and other things like that. This isn't like we're hiring somebody who's never done this.
Of course, no, I'm not suggesting anything like that.
No, but that's something that I ask. You know, I don't want this to be your learning job. Again, because it's my firehouse.
It's our firehouse.
No.
We all,
You guys may have dairy in, you're open, but this one comes to my house. And I've paid several fines already on them coming to my house.
We're putting that in place.
apparently they just put that into the concrete wall.
There's just a few more slides left here. These are some photos from the engineer's report. You can see the deterioration of the fence, certainly, and then there's the barricade in front of the parking area, and that's also in very rough condition. All of that would be replaced. And this in particular, along here, is the railroad tie, whatever I would call a temporary repair that is now, as you can see, leaning over. So you can see that this definitely needs to have attention. The rocks that are up against the wall and the chain link fence. This is
Bridge, right?
This is the bridge here, and you can see that there is water that's been seeping through and has been deteriorating the seams along here as well, and all of that.
Where is that bridge?
The bridge goes from basically the parking lot, if you will. It goes across to the building.
To the
Okay?
firehouse?
The building stands free
Okay, I never realized.
from the wall, so the bridge is a bridge to the building.
Without
And
the
they're
bridge,
not-
fire trucks need to make a jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not doing light equipment over that little bridge.
The diagram doesn't really necessarily show
Is
it.
the wall being down on both sides?
It's doing
Yeah,
the
both
whole.
sides of the
Both sides,
building.
okay, because,
I mean, like here and
The-
here, right?
yep, okay, both
Doesn't
sides.
The railroad
It's
ties
not
are being replaced
not
by a
obvious.
compound wall, not railroad ties anymore. And that other little entrance there that Rolf was showing, that's being taken down and totally replaced because I think on the next slide, is it?
There's a close-up of the beam.
Yeah, and maybe it's the one after, oh, that's the one over there. There's corroded steel beam and cracked on a bearing beam there.
Bearing location.
Yeah, so those are, that's part of the reason why it's $1.5 million, is because all this stuff is coming down and steel is being put back in. This isn't, like a retaining wall that you're doing in your garden.
Yeah. So, that's the project. You see the conditions that exist right now.
How much time does it have left?
That's a good question.
I hope 62 weeks.
It looks pretty rough.
Yeah,
It is rough.
yeah, no, that's why there's an urgency to get the project moving. Okay, I'm surprised that it wasn't addressed sooner, frankly.
Yeah, Ralph and I had this conversation. This could have, I would have liked this, but there were a lot of other things. This could have come to us in September.
Are there any other questions, comments?
Big picture, expected construction start
I heard June,
June of this year, so that would last till
and
roughly.
it would go between 6 and 8 months.
Got it.
Okay, so 6 months would be through December, 8 months would carry us through to February. Okay, so that's what we're in, March.
There was some there that said construction expected to take 62 weeks.
Well, that includes some time that's already been dedicated to the project, getting it ready to go to work.
So the clock already started.
We're good to go on this, right? It's permitted, good to go?
Yeah, I cannot answer that.
Yeah,
Because that would all be in that timeline.
Yeah, I think
All the
there's a lot of
design,
things.
all
And that
this.
might also be where they're setting up the building committee and getting all the permits and everything else they need.
I know it's on the Board of Finance agenda next week.
Yeah, we're actually approving it before the Board of Finance.
So if they were to make any changes, the resolution that we have right now might change as well, but I don't foresee that happening. I think they're just gonna approve it to move forward, and then it will come before the RTM for an RTM vote, okay? I'd like to get if nothing else, just a feeling from the committee about this project. Do you feel that this is something that we should in fact move forward with? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna say, we wanna make a motion that the committee is in favor of this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Frank makes the motion, Patrick will second. All of those in favor? It's unanimous.
Ralph, you guys are gonna report. Can you do me one favor on the report, since I'm only gonna deal with the finances, and Matt will deal with some of the description? Can you get in touch with Ed to confirm that Ed has reviewed this and is good on this?
Well, I've already been in contact with Ed.
Okay.
Okay, and, yeah, he's seen the plans, he's reviewed the plans. He says the plans of, as far as he's concerned, from what he sees, it's fine. Okay, I don't think he's going to be directly involved,
I don't think so either.
okay? But he has reviewed the plans and he's okay with it, okay?
Just that statement is
We
important,
can't
I
see
think,
this
to the
if this is
audience.
at much
Yeah,
higher level than
okay.
this.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, I know there's no
Playground, I mean, baseball field down here.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Okay, just quickly, on the next item on the agenda, Plan of Conservation Development. The P&Z has selected this consultant, they're referred to as H&H Consultant. And they are planning to release on their website, I believe I sent around a link to their website, okay? If you want to keep in touch with that, you need to subscribe to the website. And watch your step here, Jack.
Yeah, otherwise I'll be standing also.
Can you have 1 second?
Sure.
And as things come up and they send out alerts or invitations of any sort, if you subscribe to the website, you will be informed about where they're going, okay? The survey release, apparently they're asking to start off with a public survey, which is through the website, okay? And that survey is to be released March 5th. Now, what's the date? So, in theory, it's out there already. I'm gonna go on the website tomorrow morning and see what's up with that, okay?
There's a 10-second survey on the first page of the website
Is there?
that says, what's the one thing that would make
Yeah.
It's a one-question survey.
Is that the survey I
I
wonder?
can't
No,
answer
that's
that
not the
question,
survey.
but it's a survey.
It's a survey.
No, it's a one question.
Pre-survey.
It's not the survey.
It's an engagement thing.
An engagement thing, okay. They do have a timeline, it's listed on the website. And the one that caught my attention is that they're expecting in their calendar to address and meet in some way, shape, or form with commissions, RTM committees, and organizations through the period of April 4th through April 6th. Okay. The last P&Z meeting that was held that discussed the progress and the moving forward with this, one of the members of that committee spoke up on behalf of Public Works RTM committee and said that he thought that we should be, part of the people at the table as this is being developed. So I haven't heard anything, no one's from P&Z has contacted me, so I'm gonna just send out a little follow-up to that and say, okay, because when he made that suggestion, the committee was accepting of it. They didn't argue with him and say that we were, unqualified or anything. Yeah, the P&Z commission. So I'm just gonna give it a follow-up to make sure that we're scheduled in here somewhere. But I just want to alert you about the fact that we're talking about basically the first week of April. And so we're in the first week of March. So it's not that far off. So I sent out, or resent the section from the present-day plan of conservation for the section on infrastructure. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at that and read it, but I would encourage you to do so. Because what I'd like to do, and what I think I'll do in the meantime, is I'll pull out certain parts of that the current plan and send it out, and I might send it to with a highlight to certain particular people in accordance with our focus groups, focus areas. So if it's something that is tied in with drainage and flooding, I'm gonna, highlight this for Patrick and Ian, so on and so forth. But that's the existing plan, okay? And so take a look at it, see if there's anything in there that you'll find some things that are just out of date and they're just not even worth playing with. But the Planning and Zoning Commission made it clear that they don't want this to be just a reissue of the existing plan of conservation, because they feel that the one that we're working under right now was very focused towards development, town development, okay? And of course, we now see that town development in our faces.
Plans work.
Yeah, with all the construction that's been going on here, there, and everywhere seemingly. So they're thinking of this more of, okay, now that we've executed our development to the extent that it is today, where do we go from here? What are our concerns for the next 10 years with the development that is currently going on? And how do we want to focus the next 10 years, particularly in respect to where the town is going to be with all this development? Certainly my concerns are from a public works perspective. What strains does it put on, for example, the sewer system? What strains per se will it put on the supply of water? There's talk about aquarium being sold to a private company. And I don't even know what would happen should that occur, because a private company would not necessarily be subject to the PURA regulation authority for utilities for the state of Connecticut. Right now, they are, because they're owned by Eversource. But if Eversource were to sell to a private company, the influence of regulators per se on that company would be limited.
What's the distinction between Eversource being a public company? What do you mean?
Yeah,
It's still got to follow state law.
Yeah, no, they have to follow the law. You're right. They can't like start pumping out polluted water. I agree with you there. But I think the biggest concern is what they might do with the rates. Okay.
But I think that would be beyond the scope of the town's planning.
That's
beyond, you're right, that's beyond POCD, you're right, but it's certainly a concern about, just in general, the support to the town from the development that's occurred. Okay, sewer commission is within the town, so certainly that's something that's more within our reach. I certainly would agree. So that's really the time or the mind frame that they want us to be considering in looking at today's, but also considering what should be in the new one coming up in the next 10 years. Okay, and so I'll send these out. There's certainly a section in there about sidewalks and pedestrian safety.
Yeah, if I might just add.
Sure.
Really, the POCD is really meant to set up both the priorities and the guardrails that the town believes, not just Planning and Zoning Commission, not just the Public Works, the town. So they should be taking input. What I heard from the consultant was that they are planning to do some inputs from the town, not just a survey, but potentially doing the way the Great Island Committee is doing, taking input from the town to help set the priorities in terms of open space and sidewalks and, you name it. What is it? How does the town want to express its vision for the next 10 years? And what are the things that we want to gear toward? And this has to be done every 10 years because any developer, anything that happens in town has to be consistent with the POCD. So it does have legal ramifications, but it really is meant to be the scope of what's the vision of the town over the next 10 years. So, while certainly water and sewer and all of the infrastructure is important, you make a good point, and that is anything that the town comes up with, it still has to be able to be supported with infrastructure. So, you know, what happens to Aquarian and Eversource is really outside of that purview.
So I'll put something together, and as I said, I'll target it to our various different focus groups. But I'd like you to read the existing, think about the future, the 10 years, as Patrick has described, the vision, if you will. And I want to have something at the next meeting that we can come together with, so that when we do meet with H&H or whoever, however we're going to give our feedback to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have something to put in front of them. What we're going to put in front of them is just how we feel about it. Okay, they do not have to adopt what we have to say. They can read it, they can take it into consideration, but they don't have to.
Well, it's not up to H&H. It's up to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yeah, that's correct. They will take it in, they will put it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's up to them to decide, you know, what to adopt into the plan or not. Okay, so, but it is an opportunity for us to at least have some input, is really what it's about. Okay, and then my concern was that we had the opportunity to do that. Okay, I'm fairly certain that the Rules Committee, and Jack also in particular, is looking for Public Works to be secondary to planning and zoning on plan of conservation. Okay, and Patrick has mentioned to me that that was the case when this was done 10 years ago. Okay,
Ralph, can you clarify, you want us to review the infrastructure section that was sent, and then you
Yeah.
said you're going to put something together.
Yeah, I'll just pick out certain excerpts from the present day plan and say, take a look at this, tell me if this should be reconsidered in some way, or should we just not even concern ourselves with it necessarily. But on your own, if you read and pick up something that, you know, looks like it should be revisited in some way, shape, or form, given the state of the town today and looking for the next 10 years, then I would certainly encourage you to, you know, just put your thoughts quick on a piece of paper and bring it in, okay? Because we want to go through that together, I think, and then come up with a composite list of what we want to bring to H&H. That's what I'm thinking. Does anybody,
So,
anybody has any other?
or if something's missing.
I'm sorry?
Priorities 10 years ago were
Yeah,
clearly going to
it's-
be different than what they
Yeah.
were different than what they will be now.
I agree. So I'm not sending this out for you to just consider what is now in there and how it should be reconsidered, but also think about anything new that's on the horizon with the development that's occurring in the town. Certainly the impact of Great Island is something that was never even dreamed of when that was done 10 years ago. Okay, and the development that has come along now, a number of those projects that are now in construction are new since then. Okay, so there are some new conditions that we are facing in the future. And I'm just asking you to try and synthesize that in your mind and think about what is the interest we would have in those areas for the next 10 years. Yeah, you need a little vision then, okay? The budget. The Board of Selectmen, I believe it was yesterday, or the day before, has already presented their budget to the finance budget and finance for the town. This is from OpenGov. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to go in there. It takes a little bit of finagling to get something. This is the numbers just for Public Works. And so what we have here in this column is first the items that are revenues, from here down, and some of the different descriptions for the various, whatever, forms of revenue, and then put against that the expenses. which again are listed in a few lines with some description of what they are: contract services, materials and supplies, etc. So for the year of 2021-22, we were operating, and of course we know that Public Works doesn't have, you know, revenues so that we have a complete balance of revenues and expenses, but that particular year we came in overspending, if you will, by almost 2.5 million. The year after that, it dipped slightly to 2.37 whatever, and came down by whatever, almost 4% from the previous year. 2023-24 came in at 2.646, increase over the previous year of 11.2%, and now we're getting a little more current year, 24-25, operating at a little over $3 million to the negative, an increase of 15% over the previous year. And then the proposed budget that was just submitted is going up to $3.2 million, an increase over the previous year of some 6.17%. So the last 3 years in particular, in Public Works, we've been going up and up in our expenses. And we don't have the revenues, at least not within Public Works, to keep that at some sort of steady figure, although it has tapered off in the current proposal comparative to the previous year and the year before that. So that's at least encouraging to see, but still 6% is substantial. You know, we've discussed about, you know, the increased costs that we're experiencing in the transfer station, and certainly that's part of it. Another part of it is the 2 full-time employees that were taken on mid-year, but is now in the operating budget for the coming year, and those are certainly 2 contributing factors. But it's a trend that I just wanted to show you all so you can see that we are growing in our expenses. And I don't know, rate of inflation right now, what is it? Something, depends on which way they publish the numbers, but my own feeling is that it's somewhere around 4% or maybe a little under. So we are moving in our expenses in excess of inflation. So I just wanted to point that out because it's something to take into consideration as we go into the budget, and we need to go into the budget soon. I've already been in contact with Jack because of the fact that this week the Board of Selectmen submitted their budget into finance budget, Board of Finance rather, and so they have a public hearing scheduled for the 11th. So anybody from the public who wants to speak to the budget and the Board of Finance about the budget, that's your opportunity. Okay, I spoke with Jack about it. Of course, they are having their own meetings with the Board of Finance, and so I said, well, give me an idea. What's the calendar? When do we have to, you know, come back with any of our comments or recommendations? And his answer to me was basically, as soon as you can, okay? Now, we're not really scheduled to have another meeting until April, and by that time, this thing will be done. So,
Yeah, it'll be through Board of Finance by then, won't it?
Yeah, and it'll come to the RTM for our consideration, and so April 10th will be our budget review session.
as the RTM.
That's Public Works.
Here.
Well, you know, it'll be a little bit after the fact.
Yeah, well, after Board of Finance, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how you all feel about that. Do you want to stick to that? Or if you want to have anything to give over to Jack and his group, and also to the Board of Finance as they're deliberating on the budget before they, you know, pass it. You know, our window is quite short. So I just wanted to put that to the committee for consideration. Yes, Mark?
No, I was just gonna you're posing that broadly or within purview of Public Works? Your comments are more broadly directed, correct?
Broadly, but in terms of, I mean, we haven't sat down and had a formal
Yep.
budget review meeting, and there's a lot there. There's, besides the operating budget, there's the capital expenditures, parking fund, sewer fund. So,
But just, go ahead.
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll have 6, so I've been through the full budget, or all 6 of the budgets that we have to look at. So, the big one, the big delta in Public Works this year is all around waste management. So it's like where our costs are going, as we heard from Ed last month, or that, you know, there's a big change in what the new contract is costing us. And we're getting a lot more solid waste disposal, or solid waste coming in. So revenues are going up, but costs are going up faster. So we've got a growth in the total cost for managing waste in Darien is going up at a faster pace than it has in the last several years. And it's gone up every year for the last several years. You go over 3 tabs all the way to the waste management tab on there, you can see if the total, that's built,
Far right.
Basically half the increase, right?
Yeah, and so that's literally, you know, what is it, 18% increase this year? And so that's the net increase of the cost of waste management, even with the increase in revenues that are coming in. So that's
In tonnage.
that's the 18% is the total the cost in dollars.
But the
Net-
increased
net
revenue
cost.
is from,
The revenue is from increased tonnage, but the net increase is that 18%. So, you know, take a look around that. That's the area of biggest concern. The second area that I call to everyone's attention is this is the first year that we will, in a thoughtful way, look at the 6-year capital plan.
yeah.
So last year, they threw it at us like 24 hours before we were talking about the budget and said, oh, by the way, please approve this.
Yeah.
So,
We had some thoughts.
and so what we have is the 6-year capital budget, and there's some, you know, and to me, that's where our long-range planning of like where are we making infrastructure investments are all really in the capital plan instead of the operating plans.
Right.
And then, you know, take a look at, they're very brief, but the sewer operating funds and the parking operating funds both have increases in operating costs of less than 2%. So things are very stable inside of those. There are a couple of investments in the capital funds for those with the around, especially specifically around Norotan Heights, that are in the capital plan there. So take a look at the capital plans for, but you know, for sewer and parking. But the real focus is on those first 2 pieces.
And when you say Norotan Heights, is that the fire department wall that we just talked about? Or
No,
something?
it's the train station. So there's $7 million dedicated to a brand new train station at Norotan Heights in 26, 27. So it's like once they're done downtown, they're coming to Norotan Heights so that we get so that's the major capital investment on that side.
Thank you.
before
That was
the
not
budget
in our-
was better.
That was not in any package that was distributed, right?
I'm sorry?
No,
We-
no,
we-
you're
No,
right.
no,
No, it
All of
wasn't.
what he's talking about, this is the only thing I
That'll
said
be
down, what's
subsequent
up on the
budgets.
screen.
Yeah.
Well, where I was going with the MSW is in the kickoff meeting back in late January, early February, with the town administrator and department heads presented to the Board of Selectmen, when that gap was highlighted, because it's not new, was expected, there was talk about adjusting commercial rates for tipping.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's gotten any further traction.
It hasn't shown up in
Yeah.
any of it hasn't shown up in the Board of Selectmen's proposed budget to the Board of Finance.
Okay.
So it's an area where the
So
Board of
that's right,
Finance could take action on that. And I think that's a big question, is that this, the gap that has been widening, we have an opportunity on tipping fees, for commercial tipping fees, to talk about the revenue on that side. So is that something that the Board of Finance is considering?
Board of Selectmen discussed it pretty vigorously.
But passed on the
Yeah,
opportunity.
John in particular was very interested about, well, what are we gonna do? And he was he was kind of pushing
Yeah.
Ed about, shouldn't we relook at those fees? Kind of
I
thing.
don't think those originate with Ed, though.
No, they don't, but it was a public works presentation,
Yeah.
so Ed was there, and so it was part of the
We
conversation.
had this debate
But
last time.
we asked Ed this exact question. He
Yeah.
didn't seem to be, it seemed obvious that you should be able to increase the fees, and yet he didn't seem to be.
Well, I don't think, he
Yeah, I
shied away
don't,
from
yeah, I don't think
policy.
that's necessarily his call, okay? I think John's just trying to have a conversation with him about it, but ultimately, if the Board of Selectmen decide to make a change in the rates, then that's really where it's gonna happen. So,
I have a question
That seems
about,
obvious.
the components, I'm back
I think so.
to the garbage again. I think we can't control one cost, which is when we dispose of it, it goes to, where does it go to and what are they charging us for taking it there?
Right, so just last year, starting in June last year, we just signed a new contract with Waste Management, whatever the name of the new company is. What's that?
Is it one way?
Winwaste, with Winwaste, yeah. And so in that contract, and I think it's a multi-year contract, so our tonnage rate for them coming and taking it away and for managing basically the facility, et cetera, there is all set. And so that's in the budget for the rates. What we can't control is how much garbage there is.
Okay.
And what we charge, both residents and commercial.
And there's an
users.
increase, there's a big increase in the garbage that we're
Yeah.
out.
We've had a massive
Yes.
increase in the
yeah,
last.
I think, what was
Well,
we,
sure,
50%
No,
increase?
but that was huge.
I mean,
It was a
But
huge.
it's a lot of, and the waste management in other towns in the area is not improving. And so we've become a more attractive place for
We
commercial.
talked about that
We-
people are coming from out of town.
Right, we're gaining market share.
Yes. Which is good because we're gaining the revenue, but it's still,
What I can't track on this
Yeah.
is, we're getting more garbage in, but we're sort of running a profit, meaning it costs us less.
we're taking a vig on it.
We're taking a vig on it, but then what's the delta in the budget, right? Because we're actually taking a vig on the commercial side. We should, that budget.
This is what I don't understand. If the commercial fees, if based on what we're being charged and what we are charging commercial haulers, and what we're being charged to dispose, if there's a spread that we're making money on,
How are we running
Then
the
why
deficit?
aren't we making money?
With more volume.
then I don't understand, if exactly, the more volume should reduce
Right.
the spread, or should reduce the amount, so that was the basis of my confusion.
Yeah, and what Ed was saying last time was basically what's not in that vig is the fixed cost of operating the facility. But to your point, then volume should solve that problem, right?
And on top of that,
So I'm right
the recycling, we're actually getting a healthy recycling rebate compared to both expectations and what last year was, or what the previous contract was. So,
No, we're a lot worse off on that.
On
So we're
recyclables.
we're net paying.
we're net paying, but we're net paying less than we were paying.
No,
No.
But the
before we
rebate-
were being paid. We were being paid.
But the rebate's more.
But the rebate's more, so we
Yeah.
went from being paid
No, I
$750
get
up to plus 75, but net, we're at like 35 right now. So
Right.
like half the cost of it is still, so, that's a delta in there in terms of, so we have a cost for that, for our recycling.
But based on what Ed said, more volume should give us better revenue.
I feel like this is a question we need to just ask Ed again to write down, like, we don't get it.
Right, it's like, we just need to understand the math
Right.
on
Yeah, that's
solid waste.
Yeah.
I'll send you, Ralph, the excerpt from that very first presentation that got into exactly this and the spread.
Does he put that rebate, though, in his numbers, or does he hold that like in his hip pocket.
No, but
It's there.
it comes out in the wash, so it's.
But it's
in the
not
budget.
guaranteed. The rebate's not guaranteed.
Right, he budgeted, but he budgeted at that $35 to $40 net of the rebate.
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
so it is net.
yeah, and that's where we're coming in that 35 range. So his
But there's a-
budgeting was good.
There's a contingency that if our recycling isn't just as one scenario, if our recyclables are not as clean and not as valuable, then that rebate can go down.
Right.
So if all of a sudden we get a lot of dirty cardboard, their rebate can go
So
down.
keep rinsing those jars.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep rinsing on the job.
Can I just make one comment, Jeff? That you spoke to this and a couple of the people did too, about the importance of the long-term capital budget. And this is in the context of what Mr. Zagorowski spoke about at the last meeting, which I want to say I appreciate his bringing that long-term perspective to us as the RTM, because I've been in the RTM for a long time, and we haven't had anyone come to us with a long-term plan like that and treat us like adults and talk about the trade-offs we have to make and things like that. But I do want to take issue with a comment that you made that I thought echoed something that Zagorowski had made, which was that basically the long-term capital budget tells us what we have to trade off in the long-term capital, or words to that effect. When in fact, I think the long-term capital budget is an indicator to us of what we want to have left over after we pay for our operations, right? So I think the things in the capital budget, unless they're emergencies like we're looking at with
Well, like today.
the firehouse, right? Or the retaining wall, like those are things that are non-negotiable. But whether, again, I don't want to get into a bigger debate, but again, I think the priority for this town and for our committee needs to be what we spend on operations, right? Whether that's school or town or our own public works department that we are most focused on here. And we want to make sure that's running in the way that it needs to run. And it's a little more complicated because the most important things, the things nearest and dearest to my heart are in the sewer fund and in some other dedicated funds. So that makes it a little more complicated. But I just want to focus the capital budget is critical, but it is not the most important thing that we do here. Right.
It's a part of the equation.
Right. The most important thing we do is we pay for like the important services and operations of the town. And
But the capital budget as well shows like our road paving, what we do in 1 year is important. But what
Right.
we do on a sustained basis is what we're investing in infrastructure.
fully
So that's
agree.
the only, that's
We're
the
in
only.
we're in violent agreement, right?
And you'll see in sidewalks, there's an issue.
Exactly.
Okay, well, then, I would love to learn
No,
more
but
about that.
when we're talking about capital budgets, that is, to me, that's the bigger variable. I mean, without getting into the numbers, that is the bigger variable. And the larger discussion, the question is whether or not the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen are willing to have that discussion. And I have my guesses.
Well, the only point I'm trying to bring out here tonight is the fact that the calendar is moving, and it's moving pretty fast. And if we want to have an opportunity to give some input as those deliberations are going along between the Board of Finance and RTM Finance and Budget, Jack, we need to get those things into both of them as soon as we can. And of course, if we want to do that, we need to be prepared to cite particulars and a recommendation or commentary of some sort about certain items in the budget that we find questionable or need review in some manner, shape, or form. I don't know, and I don't think we'll know unless we go through it. And that's the point I'm trying to make. And the other point I'm trying to make is if we wait until our April meeting, I think the whole thing's going to be over between those two groups, and we'll just be commenting on what's already been approved by the Board of Finance.
So you're suggesting we should schedule that?
Another meeting.
I'm certainly thinking about it, and I wanted to put that out to the committee, and it's not a decision I want to make, solitarily, okay, and get your feelings about it, okay? We could wait and do it in the April meeting, but then just understand that a lot's going to be done by then, okay? If we feel strongly that we want to have some sort of foot in the door prior to when all of that occurs, then yes, we're going to have to move sooner than that. That's all I'm trying to say. So I'd like to hear your feelings about that. Don't all speak at once.
Gee,
Mark,
we
what do you
come-
think?
Come up with a priority list of what we really,
The presentations that I went through, which admittedly I'm not current the past week and a half or so, but the line items that's on the operating side were generally pretty tight. There were limited exceptions. There's additional, I probably missed when you talked about the additional FTE for the full year. This MSW gap, there's something else. This was the main thing that caught my attention. And I left those early meetings, that early meeting in particular, thinking that that was going to get some traction, the idea of aligning the tipping fees.
More to what it's costing.
I even thought there was 2 different ranges discussed. Yes, so I'll go back through it. That was the one item that really jumped out at me. I didn't focus too much on some of the capital items at that point down the road. I did see an increase in the sidewalk. Was that 2 years out?
Yeah, they,
It was 2 years.
yeah, no, they pushed,
Further?
that was supposed to be in 1 year and it went out.
One more.
Sure.
So, yeah, outside of that one item, which is big, it's the biggest one, moves the needle, I don't recall there being anything that was egregious or even raised an eyebrow. I'm pretty tight with the money. I mean, I missed.
I agree, in the operating budget,
Yeah,
there's.
I can't think of anything I'd want to go and scratch at.
Well, credit card fees are going up again, and I'm like, Jen,
Yeah.
you've been talking about getting your hands around credit card fees.
It's been going on for
like,
years.
Yeah, and so, anyway, that's.
Right, but it's not going to move the
It's
needle.
30.
No, it's not.
$30,000.
But it's annoying that we can't seem to get even that addressed.
Get something done.
Right, if we want to,
Well,
you know,
it's a very, thankfully Jack's not here to talk about the credit card fee. But it's a town-wide thing, it's not just.
Exactly.
It's not a public works.
exactly.
thing.
So, but you could go to that, scratch that again like we do every year, but I just don't, anyway,
Yeah.
I've stated my piece, I thought it was pretty tight.
My only issue was on the capital side. So, if the operating budget's the operating budget, I mean, I'm not trying to spit the hook here, but
Yeah.
I think it's pretty predictable,
Yeah.
and it's, there aren't that many moving parts to it. So, I mean, I would suggest that maybe, rather than having a meeting, if somebody's got a strong objection, maybe send it, not that I want to add to your plate, but send it in to Rolf, and if there's a list of things that after everybody's had a chance to go through with a fine tooth comb, maybe this is something we probably should do a meeting for, and maybe we can do.
Or Rolf, if you want us to field that, and organize it and send it to you, if you get something off your plate, if you guys are fine with that.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, because you two are,
Yeah.
in that focus area. So, yeah, I would tend to ask, if anybody's got thoughts, shoot them into you. And then, if you can, if you get, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 items, we'll put that together in something and send it off in the
And then you
meantime.
could determine if it's.
Yeah, I could just send that out to them as a commentary from the Public Works Committee. Subject to review in April.
Yeah, I don't think, I agree, I don't think we need an in-depth meeting in between now and April 10th in order to do it. I would just, if you've got, and I'm just drawing your attention to those two, municipal solid waste and the capital budget, are areas where I think we would all have, and I've just distributed a copy of the capital budget in case you left yours at home. So you can just use one of these and just peruse, because it's a.
Oh, this is
it's
the
a very-
5-year plan.
Yeah, this is the 5-year.
Yeah.
The budget capital items for this year are limited, right?
Very.
Right, they're limited there into, to the column,
Yeah.
25, 26.
Yeah.
But but they've asked for our approval of the
Yes.
5-year plan.
No, I understand.
Yes,
So-
they want us to go on record with a vote,
Yeah,
because they don't want to, I guess they want to have that on the record so that if there's anybody who's deviating from it for whatever reason,
yeah.
they can say, well, we all signed off on it.
Jeff, do you have one of those?
I do.
It's coming down, those are all the same. You took them all. I did the same thing.
All right.
Just check, make sure there's no,
So, Ken, I echo what you're saying, look at this. You're saying, well, take a look at this. I'll bet there's 3 items that are gonna
I'll send you.
draw people's attention,
I'll send you my comment.
give or take,
Yeah.
and I know, we all know one of them is. So,
Okay, so, yeah, the Board of Finance is to vote on the budget April 10th. Finance and Budget Liaisons, we've got these 2 gentlemen, Charles and Peter. And then, whatever we're gonna send in, Jack also recommended that we send it also to Jen. Yeah, which surprised me, but he said, you know, why not? Okay. Anything else about budget while we're on the topic? Although you all seem to be pretty engrossed in the capital budget.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw that.
We'll take
Well, I think just, I mean,
a
you remember
2-minute
the
pause for
7
the,
million
for
for
the
the train
capital
station.
budget.
It's worth calling out that there's $10 million for drainage,
Yep.
right,
Yes.
which is Saltbox and Tilly,
Right.
which we all
Yep.
know about, but
Yep.
like, that is the biggest single line item.
By multiple,
Yeah.
the other years, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just 1 year. All right then. So, Frank,
Rolf.
so when Ed was here, you brought up the exit 12 off-ramp road flashing pedestrian crossing.
I did, and I was wondering what cosmic convergence aligned me with the police. Is it Allison?
He's the captain, so apparently,
She.
you know, because Ed said at the meeting, I'll send that off to the police. And he
Good on
did.
Ed for the follow-up.
Yeah, no, Ed carried on, sent it off to the captain. Did you see his response? I think I just distributed his response out in an email
I was not able to read that on my device, I'm sorry.
on my device, okay.
Sorry, I'm new to the world of Apple devices. So.
Well, apparently the captain is saying, you know, you gotta give me a good reason for why you think this should be done. You have to give me, I think you used the word proof,
Okay.
okay? So, if this is something we wanna pursue, we're gonna have to come up with some sort of proof reason
So, Mr. Edelman,
as to why.
it falls to you once again.
Well,
Yep, no, it's a
I'm
legit.
not trying to be cute, I'm just
No,
saying,
that's fair.
you raised the question.
That's fair, I
Ed
appreciate it.
followed through, we have an answer.
Okay.
So the question is, how do we proceed from here? So I'm not gonna ask you to respond, but I want you to think about it. How
Well,
can we come up?
and, sorry, the other thing to, sorry to interrupt, but it's not just to the police, it would go to the state.
Right, it also has to go to the state, but your first
There you go.
hurdle is captain,
Yeah,
Hudema.
it goes to the state with her recommendation.
okay? So
In the
that's,
event it goes to the state.
Yes.
so I wanted to be sure that you were understanding of where we are with that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have the previous meeting, some very nice notes. Thank you, Carolyn. Has everybody had a chance to read the notes?
Brilliant.
Move to accept.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Ian seconds. All in favor of accepting the meeting notes from the last meeting minutes? Thank you. John Sartorius is again absent, so we're not gonna go there. I'll take pause here for a minute and say thank you, Jeff, for conducting the last meeting.
My pleasure, you were great.
Okay, and I watched the recording, it looked like you had a good meeting with Ed.
I got your notes, thank you.
You're welcome. So, focus area updates, and we'll start off with town land buildings, which of course certainly also incorporates the Great Island, so who wants to speak to that? Who's on that?
That's Mark and I.
Mark
So on
and
Great Island.
Patrick Carr.
Hopefully everyone saw my last update, which was, there have not been a meeting since that update.
But they did have a big turnout on Saturday
Yes. I have not seen the numbers yet.
for this next phase of coming up with what's the plan that's going to be reflective of the vision.
Yes. Not seen the numbers yet. hopefully everyone will go and fill out the latest survey, which has launched.
Yep, new survey.
So Mark, how does the Great Island planning align with the PODC plan?
Right now, it doesn't, because
Well,
that wasn't even thought of back 10 years ago.
Well, it's not in the current one.
Right.
no, but it's a
Planning.
guidance document, just like all the other documents in town.
But is the thought that the Great Island Commission sort of does its work and then part of the PODC is picking up that work and factoring into their thinking?
I kind of look at it as the work of the GIAC has to be within the scope.
Within the scope of
the
okay,
definition.
got it.
Yeah, and that was one of the early documents researched by the consultant.
Okay.
A guiding document, if you will.
Thank you.
I noticed that they had at the Saturday event in the gym there, where they had all the different posters up with covering different topics, that there was one, section that touched on management and governance, if you will. And so I'm hopeful, optimistic, that as they go forward, that some sort of plan is going to be formulated in that regard. You know, this committee, when we voted on whether or not to vote for the purchase of the Great Island, this committee had as part of the resolution that we passed as a committee in accepting the premise of purchasing the island, the fact that we felt strongly that part and parcel would have to be a formation of a body for governance of the island. And I hate to put this in blunt language, I'm still waiting. And I'm hopeful that they finally get to that in this next phase. I'll just pass that comment along.
Understood, and I believe I know that that's being pursued. Not one of the 3+ forms of governance have been. Yeah,
they put up several different boards for different possibilities of how a governing body could be formulated. Okay, I'm of the group that might be more open to a private-public partnership.
Yep.
With a conservancy as part of that for the island.
And there's precedent for that in town.
Yeah, so that's
I
my
look
own,
to
that's my
the
own
library as an example of the way Darien does, historically has done things like big.
The library is a public-private partnership?
It's
Yeah,
run by,
well, they submit a budget, okay, and you know, so the town does support them in that regard.
The town funds the operating
Right,
budget,
the operating
but the
budget.
private donations buy the books and buy the.
and are a big
everything
chunk of
else.
the capital programs too.
You know, since we touched on the library, one of the things that the librarian mentioned during their presentation was that they're running out of parking.
Oh, I know that just from trying to go and do
Now,
stuff
here's the
there.
thing, that on the weekend, that parking out on Thorndale Circle has been available. But, as you know, there's a new development going into Thorndale Circle, and so that option on the weekend will no longer exist once that complex is built. So that would make weekend parking, whatever it is now, even more difficult.
Or maybe, who knows, if an accommodation will be made as part of the permitting process. Perhaps.
Oh, that's not even when I think it's the worst.
Okay.
It's like afternoons if there's some sort of programming or kids after school or something. I don't know.
Okay.
It's just my,
It's a busy library.
yeah.
It's one of the gems of the town.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So I'm willing to drive away and go back another time.
Any other comments per se about buildings and land and all that happy stuff? Sewer Commission, Frank, Tony, anything happening?
I don't have an update, I'm sorry.
Well, you covered it in the meeting with Ed, so it's going to be interesting to see how the illicit sump pumps problem works out.
Great.
All right. Great Island, we've already spoken about that. Coastal Waters, Jeff Hudson is absent. Vincent, you're here.
Yeah, they're looking great.
The coastal waters look fine.
Very wet.
Fish's been cold. It's still wet.
No,
The only
it looks great
concern
in
I
there,
have
really.
is how there's this dredging portion of the Pear Tree Point project, which is limited to go around to the boat club. And then there's a separate dredging project that goes from the boat club down the channel and out into Long Island Sound, okay? Now, I really want to see those two come together, okay? And right now, I have no understanding or feeling for that whatsoever, how that's gonna work. Does anybody have any information?
I mean, I think everybody wants them to happen at the same time for economic reasons
Right.
and convenience
Right.
reasons.
Yeah,
So,
logistical
but
reasons?
the harbor dredging project is behind
Yeah,
Pear Tree Point, just
Yeah.
in its planning approvals and
Yeah.
environmental. So the quality of the sludge is as of yet unknown. And so once they get that determined for the harbor dredging, that is, that's a bigger deal from what limited I understand, than the Pear Tree Point dredging that they're doing. So everybody wants them to come together,
Right.
but there's no way to get the harbor dredging project to go a little faster. That's,
I
My
got a
summary.
stupid question. I mean, I know who's involved with the Pear Tree Point project. I have no idea who's involved with that dredging project down the channel. Does anybody have any idea?
I don't think it's been decided yet.
I've
Well,
only seen it at the Board of Selectmen level. I haven't seen any.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, I happen to know, I mean, I'm not a friend, I'm an acquaintance, let's put it that way, to the harbor master. So I think, do you know the harbor master?
No.
No.
John Keenan.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good guy.
yeah. I think he would know. So,
Is the timing on this supposed to be post this summer? Because
well,
of the
I know
funding
that,
issue and all that?
I know the Pear Tree Point project is moving in the near future for, I think they've already gone to the P&Z
Okay.
for the permit, and I think it was approved, or it's in the process of being reviewed.
So whose 5-year plan has it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Right,
I don't know.
that's, in theory, it's on some.
no, that's Parks.
Park.
That's Parks and Rec.
Parks?
Yeah.
That's where it would be, Parks and Rec, yeah.
Okay.
I bet that's a lumpy one.
Well,
But wasn't there a lot of federal money available for or something they had to use?
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
you know, certainly I'm interested about the budget aspect, but I'm also interested about what you pointed out about the timing. Can this come together? Is it feasible?
Yeah, the two
Or is
come
this
out.
just, are these two things just gonna fall apart?
Yeah, I'm thinking the timing informs the capital plan.
Mm.
It's not the other way around.
Well, I think I'll try and reach out to the harbor master, because he's very knowledgeable.
I could talk to Adele.
Okay, that would work too. All right, recycling, sustainability. Carolyn, do you have anything to add?
No, I have
Okay.
not even been here, so no, I've done nothing.
Understood. Draining flooding, anything new special? I mean, you got a pretty good briefing with Ed about where the projects are.
Yeah. There's $10 million in the capital planning budget.
Okay. Ed also mentioned that he's moving ahead with the dam,
Yes.
so that's good. Roads and sidewalks, Frank and Patrick. I don't know. The only thing that caught my eye, budget-wise, was the $20,000 consultant.
Yeah, that's it. It's been silent in terms of what the construct of any advisory group will be. And I may reach out to first selectman, see what he has to say.
Yeah, because we had a meeting with him, and, you know, we expressed ourselves about our interest in the area. He, I thought, gave us assurances that, you know, he would keep us involved, but we haven't really heard much since.
And it's not really expressed, at least in terms of my level of interest, it's not expressed in here.
So would that be a comment you might pass on to Mark and Jeff?
I might.
Okay, that's good.
Point of clarification from my understanding, you guys understand the 20,000 is in the 2026 budget?
Yeah.
Not the 2025 budget? So this is
So this
like-
is even further up.
yeah, so this is, so that was what
The
surprised
2026
me.
budget is what we're about to.
Well, we're talking about
Right.
2025, 26, I mean,
That's in 26, 27.
26, 27.
It's not the one we're gonna be,
No,
not,
I don't think so.
No, hang on,
Well,
that's
take a
not
look.
what, that's not what John, that's not what he told us when we met with him.
Correct, he
Yeah.
was talking this year.
Yes, this coming year.
Yes,
Because
the
we're.
one we're in.
It,
Um,
it may be coming out of a
it's-
side pocket somewhere.
Yeah,
well,
but
I'm not-
it wasn't visible to me in any of the public works stuff where the 20,000 that was referred to in the budget meeting. So that's where, maybe it is happening sooner, but but if it was being talked about in this budget cycle, then it's for next year, not this year. So anyway, I'm just trying to find the 20.
Yeah,
You know,
But you'll find that out if you reach out.
I'll reach out to him.
Well, and allegedly, in this year's budget is sidewalks for the bottom part of Edgerton.
That's currently being planned in the current, out of the current year budget, yes.
Yes.
It's in this
The
500,000.
current year, you mean the fiscal 26?
No,
Fiscal 25, 26.
Fiscal 25, 26.
Right.
The one we're
It's
The one we're
fiscal
about to
26,
go.
right?
The one we're approving.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think about.
It-
the budget
Oh, I
that the Board of
thought we-
Selectmen
Right.
submitted this week.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
No, I
contains-
thought-
Sorry, they didn't get old.
No, I thought
Year
Edgerton is
2025.
1 year
I
earlier than.
think so.
I thought Edgerton
Is,
was
it's approved, planned.
approved and funded for, I thought it came out of 24, 25. And it just hasn't been, there's been a delay, not delay, it just hasn't taken shape
Or
yet.
you think it was funded like in the current, in the
I mean,
current year?
remember, we had, if I remember correctly, we had $500,000
Yeah,
that not a dime was used last year.
Yep.
Because Ed couldn't line up any
Yep.
contractors.
the sidewalk that was supposed to go in near me last year, that never happened.
So I think it was, now it came down the road.
But he indicated while he was sitting here with us that he had secured contractors for the work that was in the current year's
Correct.
budget and plan, which includes at least Edgerton, and I don't know about that.
Oh, it was the one on Sedgwick, which I think
Yeah.
has kind of fallen off the map, but.
So my,
But, so I think those
I
should be the
remember
sum.
that there was one easement that was, or maybe two easements on Edgerton that were holding up, but they thought that they would go to, no?
well, as a resident of Edgerton, this is a very sensitive topic on the street, just to be super clear.
It's been for 20 years.
Yeah, and what I understood from Ed was that the next step, like, there are plans to put it on either side of the street.
Right.
So the big debate is which side do you put it on? And Ed was supposed to have some sort of public hearing on it. I had never seen any announcement about it, and I had been looking. And so, like, I'd be shocked if work just started. As would most of the residents in Lower Edgerton who I've spoken to. So.
Didn't he say when he was here, something along the lines of, and you guys said, we're gonna do it on the same side? I thought you all nodded.
I have a suggestion. Maybe
I
we're
remember-
back and
Yeah,
watch,
just
Watch
watch
the
the
watch
last
that,
meeting.
Because
That was
I
not my recollection, but.
thought he said something like
Let's
that,
go to the
and he
videotape.
seemed to be
Yeah,
very happy
let's
about
go to
it.
the- let's
and
go to video.
So I assumed there was some
Just
agreement
listen.
as to
Yeah,
what you
I'll go
said.
watch it.
So we should watch
There's a difference
But-
between
Somebody could just show up with a truck.
That would
contractors
be
lined
bad.
up and having everything you need to proceed, like easements. You would presumably you would.
Yeah, isn't that the big issue on Edgerton, is the easements? Hasn't that always, for the last, I don't know how many years, been the issue?
That's different than have plans, have contractors ready to go.
The funding is
Although it hasn't gone out to bid. Right?
So then how do you have contractors?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I haven't seen it go to bid.
All right. Finance and budget, we already spoke.
Yeah.
Plan of conservation, we already spoke. Appendix B, we already spoke. That brings us to an email that was sent out this week from Mr. Patrick Keene.
We can kick it down the road to the next meeting if you want, because we're getting a little late here. I have to check.
Okay?
Unless, I mean, I thought it was reasonably self-explanatory, but.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it made sense.
I shot it over to Ed. He thought it was a good idea. I think he wants more understanding and information.
I can give him a run.
I'm just gonna say, maybe give him a
I'll give him a
jingling.
run.
you know, we have these hazardous days,
Hazardous waste day?
hazardous waste days, you know, maybe we could do a trial
Similar model.
with it that would be set up on that same day, because that's usually done on in the Norotan, Norotan Heights
Yeah, no, that's,
commuter traffic,
yeah.
or commuter parking lot, rather.
Yeah.
Okay, so on a weekend, so this, because the space is there on a weekend.
June, I think?
Uh-huh.
It's like around June, I think, right?
Yeah, so maybe that's a possibility, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Just to get something started, you know, if we can move that quickly. But, and then see what the response is, see what people turn out for it. I won't take any more time.
I'll reach out to Ed, see what he has.
All right. Future meeting, I think we've concluded the fact that our next meeting in April will be, for all intent and purposes, the budget meeting. Okay? So I would like to try and keep that agenda limited primarily to the budget, okay? And at that point, we can get into the details more than what we did this evening. And by that time, yeah, I would like, you know, I'll send out, as I said, you know, excerpts from the plan of conservation, and then if you folks can just jot down your own thoughts about it, and then maybe we can do that as well in that meeting. I think I kind of need to if we're going to meet with these people in the first week of April. Anything else about the future in terms of an agenda that anybody's thinking about? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Jeff, Ian, all in favor? Thank you very much.